Sean Capri, and welcome to episode 137 of We the GamerCast. It publishes on iTunes and Google Play and mother-loving YouTube every Monday. Thank you for subscribing, hitting the thumbs up, and sharing and rating on iTunes and everything else that you do. You guys are amazing, and all the people supporting us at patreon.com/makeusbetter, especially our platinum executive producer, Mr. Corey Hicks, our two gold executive producers, Sheldon, Benedict, and Mr. Moody, up there on that, sharing that gold, the what is that thing called that the Olympians stand on? The thing? Never mind. Gentlemen, executive producers, Nick Milicia for Next Level Games, Joel Brooks, James Johnson, Dr. Doom, Jesse Armstrong, David Ray, Aaron Doherty, Martini Jean, and Dude427. You guys are amazing. Thank you. This is on video thanks to you. We have repeating guests thanks to you. We are adding more people to the Make Us Better crew. Why don't we get into that, guys? Because if you're new, I'm going to get to that in a second. But for those of you who aren't new, today is March 26th. Today is Monday. I am proud to announce that Nintendo Nostalgia is joining us. Joining the Make Us Better crew. We are all equals. This is a beautiful thing that's coming together here, guys, and I hope that you like it. To be honest with you, I was a little concerned for a second there. For a little moment, I was like, I don't know if people want this, but I think it's starting to connect a little bit. We are all equal partners in this Make Us Better crew. It is absolutely incredible. You guys are helping so much amazing content. You are allowing independent creators to follow their dreams and actually make their content better. I know I don't want to speak too much on behalf of the Nintendo Nostalgia guys, but they've told me that they've been wanting to get better gear for a long time, and this is going to let them do that. So thank you guys for continuing to support patreon.com/makeusbetter. You are continuing to support a larger and larger group of us, and we're growing. Every single month we are growing. Last month we added Mark Carabin from the Warp Whistle. Now we've got Nintendo Nostalgia. Got a pretty good Nintendo voice on Make Us Better, so that's great. If you haven't already joined the Discord, the link is in the notes, so that is great. But if you're new, here's the deal. Every week I have sweet hangs with a stranger from the internet, and we talk about video games, and if you want to be part of the show, just tweet at me. It's Sean Capri, Sean like Connery Capri, like the pants. I'm trying to be excited, but also not trying to be excited. I am excited, but I'm also trying to measure because Lincoln is sleeping. So I don't think I'm being too loud. I hope this is okay. I think this is all right. Guys, last week, two amazing shows that you got. The bonus episode, Patreon-powered, was Lucas Rose. I hope you enjoyed that one. I didn't know what to expect, but I think what we got was an amazing one. So if you guys see bonus, I don't know, is it just me? Sometimes you see bonus and it sounds optional. Not optional. That one is a must listen. You must listen to the Lucas Rose one, as well as Alexandra Dahlberg from Zoint Games. The thing is, I have three amazing women lined up right in a row, but they're going to be split up by white guys from Fluxopose. This bonus episode is kind of ruining that little mojo that we've got, kind of a dedicated space to amazing women in gaming. The prime episodes are women. So we've got Alex last week, we've got Janet this week, and hopefully things work out. I don't even want to say just in case things don't work. But an amazing woman in gaming coming for you guys next week, so that's great. I want to give a quick high five and shout out and a big old hug, actually, to Sheldon Benedict and his family, man. I got to meet Sheldon Benedict at West Edmonton Mall. It was incredible. We went to a place called the Rec Room. We had a couple beers. We ate a giant pizza to ourselves, and then we just kind of wandered around the arcade, took a picture in front of the big giant Pac-Man arcade thing. There's this huge LED screen, and of course, we had to take a picture for Jams Gams, who apparently his rap name is Lil Pac, or Lil Pac, Lil, there's no T, Lil Pac. James, you are hilarious, dude. So high five to Sheldon. That was great, man. Who comes to Edmonton, first of all? That, I'm we got to make this work. There's not really a really great way to transition to this. You're going to notice in the episode, and I want to get to it really quickly with Janet. By the way, she is on 1,000 miles per hour. I also believe that she's going to be on the Bad Bit show. So we'll be having all of the links at the end of the week at patreon.com/makeusbetter. That's another kind of perk, is that you get that notification of all the things that you made possible through Make Us Better. Very, very sad news. My very good friend, his name is Faisal Sharif. He unfortunately passed away after, probably 10, 12, it seems like forever, years of facing cancer. And I've known him since 2009. And this was the kind of guy who the day that I met him, I met him for a photo shoot. I went to go take some pictures of him on a golf course because his family was supporting a golf tournament. And we just kind of were hanging out, and I thought, well, I'm going to show up for work. I'm going to meet this person. I'm going to take some pictures, and then that'll be at the end of it. And it was the start of a friendship that will last forever. But unfortunately, I will never be able to take pictures of him again. He invited me into his house the day that I met him. We did our pictures, and he's like, why don't you come on over? We'll sit and have a drink. And I was like, this is not what I was expecting. And that was Faisal. And I don't want this to be sad because he wasn't like that. He was never a pity party, even though he was dealt probably one of the toughest hands in life I've ever seen. When I met him, he had lost his leg. Shortly after that, he called it an Iron Man plate in his chest. I'm not even sure exactly what it was doing, but it was, I don't know, man. He had cancer all the time. So he had this metal plate that he made himself, he called himself Iron Man. And then it just, in the last couple of years, it just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And there was a moment when I'm like, because like when you meet him, when you talk to him, you don't think that that he's facing what he's facing, and it never seemed like he was dying. Even in the end, even when I was visiting him in palliative care, he was like, I'm going to be going home. I'm going to physio and I'm going home. And he was just the strongest mind I think I've ever seen in the face of all these diagnosis after diagnosis. So I want to thank Faisal for that, for always giving me perspective, and that you can always look at today is better than yesterday. Today's just a better day, stronger day. Every day is a good day, are the things he said. He always had these amazing mantras that he would repeat over and over. And as I got to know him, he would let me know that it was a big part of his meditation, that it was mind over matter for him. So I wanted to dedicate some time to Faisal. His funeral was yesterday. That's why I had to jet out of our conversation here. I think we've got a really good conversation with Janet, but right at the end, I'm like, we could go for another 3 hours, and I absolutely have to leave. There was a good, I don't even know how to count a group that large, a few hundred people at this funeral. Absolutely amazing Muslim ceremony. Guys, this is, to see the community come together, I've never seen anything like it. I've also never sat for 2.5 hours with my legs crossed, so that was another experience. But the whole community surrounding this family in this time was beautiful. Yesterday was a heavy day, man. It was very difficult. I know a couple people were like, let's play games. And I'm like, this was a really hard day. I'm still kind of dealing, to be honest with you. I don't know how long that kind of thing takes. I feel so horrible for his family. Anyway, I decided I was going to make this sad. He said, live every day to the fullest. Every day is a great day. So that's what today is. It's an amazing day. We're welcoming Nintendo nostalgia. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Let Faisal's message just into your life, even just for this moment. Have a good smile. Lift your head up. Have an amazing day. Listen to this great episode with Janet Garcia. She is at Gameonysus. It's Game, GameOnYsus. She'll explain that as we get into it right here with Janet Garcia.
I mean, the only thing that's been hard is like I have the same mug, and I was thinking of drinking from it to be more like game based. Wait,
problem.
hold on, let me get it. Let me be like super extra.
Okay.
Oh my god, I would totally drink out of it, but it's actually kind of gross on the inside, so I'll just wait.
That's
but
nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, my wife knows I'm a giant nerd. Well, she's a giant nerd as well. So she I just like giant coffee mugs. So we started to weed out like the small, like I need it like a gallon, I think. So this is about as good as I get a barrel of coffee for my morning breakfast.
Yeah, like I need to wash it but you can't dishwash it. So that's why I keep it in my room, because like if I leave it in the kitchen area, it'll end up in the washer. And then, it'll get ruined. I'm just drinking out of the Snoopy Joe Cool mug instead. I like this one. It's also, I can do this. This is like the biggest mug I can do, because what I don't like, and this happens a lot, I don't know how often you like kind of semi-shop for like
all the time
gamer mugs or like, weird mugs, right? Like sometimes they're too big. They're like a little bit bigger than this, and it's literally like you can pour 4 cups of coffee in there, and it's like halfway full. I'm like, what am I gonna?
It takes you half an hour just to like unload like this jug of coffee into your mug. The other thing too that I don't like is when they're giant, so like they're blocks. Like this is all cup. Like the whole purpose of this whole shape. Yeah, it's
like when it's like a square. They're like, do you want to drink out of a question
block? It looks
block?
cool.
No, I don't.
think everybody who has that one, everybody knows what we're talking about. By the way, this is the show basically. Like, there's no intro or anything. Like, this is basically it. So
no, I'm ready.
You are awesome.
I'm ready for it.
Everybody who buys that mug, they don't like it. They hate it. It takes up space in their cupboard. It doesn't fit in the dishwasher. It like doesn't really square up to your face properly. I don't know anybody with like a face that's ready to accept a square mug. Doesn't really work.
Yeah, or like the weird and these are always like the GameStop mugs basically. The high, like the Zelda shield, like the Hyrule shield mug, where it's literally the shape of a shield.
Poke you.
Yeah, and they try to like make it. It's just bad.
Janet,
some stuff doesn't work.
This is my mojo right now. Like, we could just talk about gaming coffee mugs for the next like 45 minutes, and I'm totally good.
I'm ready to go.
I actually am impressed. Speaking of like sort of collectibles, I'm very impressed with your shelf. We both have nice backgrounds of just junk, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Got to. What's your like prized possessions back there? Because I see some cereal.
Yeah, I did a video not too long ago on my channel, the 3 nerdiest things in my room, and I'm doing a room tour on my channel soon to celebrate getting 200 plus subs, so yay. So I'll do a more in-depth thing on that later, but for just off the top of my head, stuff I really like on there. Let's see.
We're very Nintendo,
I got a lot of
just
cool
for
stuff.
anybody only listening to the show.
It is very Nintendo, and I was reflecting on that. It's actually something I want to work on about myself as like a game person, like someone that covers games, talks about games, writes about games. So much is Nintendo, but like it's Switch season, and I can't help it. Like there's nothing, like all the hot stuff's coming from Nintendo right now, it feels like. And the other thing too, I realized, because I love so many other franchises, but Nintendo's just so good at their marketing and having things that you can actually put on a shelf, like amiibo, plushies, like everything. Like I do have like Yarny from Unravel on this corner, and I have, and I have a couple little one-off things like that. But like one of my favorite series ever is like Jack and Daxter franchise, and you can't find any. Like I googled like, can I find some merch for that because I want to be it to more represent all the stuff I like. And no, you just can't find anything. There's nothing there. There's like a $50 knit that someone made on Etsy that I will eventually buy just to have.
I love that you know about that. Like you're not even making that up. That's a real thing. You looked.
Yeah, it's like $30 or $50. They're adorable, and I'm gonna buy those because I need something on here. But most prized possession, I don't know. I don't have anything like too rare or super interesting. I really like. I have some Japanese Pokemon cards of the starters from the. I want to say like second gen, I think, where like Cyndaquil, like that whole, I don't know if that's second or third gen Pokemon. So that's pretty cool. And I have a couple of like, you can't really see them from this angle. I guess not that a lot of people are going to be doing video stuff, but
the Funkos.
Up on this high part, I have like a few pops and and I only have like the, my theme is going to be badass women. So I'm going to stick to that theme so far. So I have like, I have like the girl.
Is that Sailor Moon up there?
What game was it? It was, Sailor Moon's there. It's Sailor Moon, Sadness from Inside Out. Who else is up there? Shell from Portal. Alana from the Saga comic book series, and I forgot the name of this character. I'm blanking on the name of the game. It was a game that was actually a GameStop exclusive video game, and it was about the girl with the submarine, and she went underwater.
I mix that one up with that other one that's sort of like Flower Journey. Yeah, I always mix those two up. But Into the Deep, I got things from.
Is it called Into the Deep? That sounds like a Pixar film. But
I definitely have it on
might be
Steam.
Called Into the Deep.
Who knows? Somebody. I don't know why I'm loading.
I don't know
Steam.
what it's called, but
it's funner to be wrong.
Pretty good. Yeah, if you didn't buy that, you guys should buy that because it's actually pretty fun and it's really cheap. Because I mean, it didn't sell super well because it's like
that's
a
why?
GameStop
Because
exclusive.
it's exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because I don't know what the numbers are on it, but my impression was that it didn't sell well because I see it like marked really cheap at GameStop. So, yeah. So I assume it's kind of not that
I was
popular
wondering,
of a
I was going
title.
to jump in on that to say,
That
like,
was
do you
pretty
think it was because it was related to GameStop? Like, do people kind of have just, like, that love-hate relationship? Like, I hate you. I'm just going to come in and buy all my stuff from there, too. And all my Funkos and all my toys. But, man, this place is stupid and sucks.
Yeah, we can do a whole show, and if I'd love to come back and I just got here, but the GameStop hatred is like, I have so many feelings towards people gamers that
Let's
hate
get
GameStop.
into it,
like,
man. Let's do it. Why?
But yeah,
because I agree.
The abridged version, it's it's unnecessary. I feel like, I have things that I dislike too, I guess. So I'm trying to play
Sure.
both ends of the spectrum here. But usually, for the most part, when people are talking smack about GameStop, what they're really basing that on is usually random propaganda from the internet. They're like, I heard GameStop, won't sell you a new game to push used games and the used game agenda. And one time I had a friend whose cousin, the manager, would take the games for themselves. And, if they get Amiibo, the workers have first dibs. That's so unethical. First of all, they're making minimum wage or I'm sorry, they're gonna get that Pikachu case before you. Who cares? If you want that stuff, you want those perks, work in retail. But you don't want to work in retail because retail sucks to work in.
It's soul crushing.
So, I don't know, get a friend.
But
from
also,
GameStop then.
That's on the other side, that's not
just
every case. I think you bring up a good point where it's this is my cousin's friend's neighbor's brother's former roommate who works at the GameStop. I'm very good friends with the in Canada TB Games still. And they complain all the time that that's not the case, that they get nothing. So it all depends. But if you just stop hating on GameStop a little bit, you do get friends who tell you, hey, this giant Guardian amiibo for Breath of the Wild Zelda is in, and I can put a sticker with your name on it. Which, that's amazing. Become friends with GameStop. Don't hate with people at GameStop.
Exactly. And then, the other thing people complain about is not getting enough money for trade-ins. Okay, so then sell your. Can I swear on this podcast? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, sell your shit on eBay then.
Yeah,
sell your shit on
not
Facebook
even the worst thing you
Marketplace.
could have said. I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
Do literally and there's options. No one's making you. The other thing too that I hate about that is it's actually very much not true. And I will admit that I guess if we want to talk about bias, I did actually work at GameStop for a few months, not too long ago actually. But I worked there. It wasn't exactly a glamorous experience. I don't even think that really colors my bias too much because it's a retail job. It was fine. I liked it.
Do you want to talk about even the difference between bias and experience, or because I think people stretch the word. First of all, most people don't know how to use bias versus bias, so just don't even go there. But then you have experience, which gives you different context to provide an opinion, which is totally different than bias. Bias is a force that makes you think something. Like a predisposition.
Sort of. I think I like to think of bias as I like to think of bias as that a predisposition or anything that could potentially color your ability to be objective. And I guess in the case of having worked at GameStop, I think the bias actually works to your benefit. If we're thinking of credibility of source, it's well, I guess my bias is that I worked there previously, but if anything, I would say that just kind of adds to my ability to get insight into working
which is
there
why I
and
don't
to
think
what
it's
the
a bias.
policies actually are.
Well, I'm trying to give you credit here. Yeah, totally.
So it depends. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it could be a mix because, for instance, I had a pretty positive time working there, and that's a positive bias. I'm sure there could be people that work for jankier managers that would have a negative bias of just having a negative experience having been an employee. So I think that it could go either way. I just kind of like to bring it out just so that people know, just to have that information. But yeah, so the other thing too is it's so not true because I've gotten so many amazing trade-in deals via GameStop. I actually love GameStop and I've loved them even before I started working there. And I still like that store because if you know how to take advantage of this stuff, you can get really good deals. Master of Disguise Wario 3DS is going for $2 right now. So no, I'm not going to trade it in even though I don't want the game anymore. I looked it up recently because I'm can I get some money off some? I already trade in the only things I trade in personally are games that I literally don't want. I didn't like it. I won't play it again. I don't want it. Take it because I'm not going to use it.
How can you be so sure, Janet? Ooh.
So that's a game. So yeah, that's a game that I'm it's whatever. But conversely, I can get I think $20 or $25 off of Doom for Switch right now, which is a game that I also don't personally really want because I have it for Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it on my Switch, and I kind of was just keeping it for the culture of like Switch ports. But I'm like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I'd rather have the money. So yeah. So depending on, so no one wants your copy of Madden 2003. That's why you're not getting any money off of it. The reason they sell it for more than they give you is because
Mm-hmm.
it's a business. Like I
And
don't
if you
understand.
know, if anybody who's
The
like
other thing too is,
hating on
yeah, so
GameStop, you
many.
must know that there are deals. Like there are times where like this actually makes a lot of sense to trade up. Like consoles, like trading up. I'm actually I'm just off to the side. Oh no, you can't see it. I traded my original like day one Xbox One for an S and like got a ridiculous amount of money for it. Like there's no way I could have sold privately for that. And it was excellent, and it's
Yeah.
easy, and you walk in and you walk out. But like, if you don't have to trade stuff in, then like you don't really get to argue with the price that they're offering you. Like I find that very strange. Like they're only giving you $2. Well, they're not taking it from you for $2. You're literally walking in the store going, "Let's see how much I can get for this." It's a very strange complaint to me.
Yeah, it's so many and then I guess the last layer of it is like people complain so much about it, like it's this big, they're like, oh, it's this evil corrupt corporation, and then they buy their games off Amazon. Like Amazon isn't the most evil
Oh.
company like ever. Like they're like, oh, I hate the corporate stuff. That's why I have Amazon Prime. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like it's literally like
Tell me more, because I think
you're
you're
just
gonna need to
choosing.
break through a little bit here. I don't think I've got like a really great argument against, but I'm interested in. I don't think I've ever heard anybody really say Amazon is evil because everybody has a lot of love for Amazon.
Yeah, and I love Amazon too, but and this isn't I haven't really done the research into how corrupt or not corrupt it is as a company in terms of morality, but I think if you're, if you think critically about anything, any big corporation is
That's
going
why
to
I'm
have
not
some
arguing
blood
against
to
it.
it.
Is
Like I love Target. Like I love Target and they do some cool community stuff, but I also know if I dig in there deep, you don't want to, if you see how the meat gets made, you're going to maybe, think twice about ordering the sandwich or not and just feel kind of guilty about it. So, yeah, I mean, well, even if we just think of Amazon as like what it is, you can think of angles it from a lot of ways. The waste it produces in terms of, all the stuff it ships, like the fact that I'm lazy and I'll have like something really basic shipped to me, like, vitamins because they're cheaper, but I also know that's taking money away from community businesses. That's extra shipping stuff. Like it creates like this big conglomerate that has lots of layers of problems. And that's before we even start to dig into the monopoly that is like online business infrastructure and things. But, I feel like people look at, GameStop as like the big bad wolf when really like if you're not buying it from them, you're buying from other equally large, most likely equally problematic companies like Amazon, like Best Buy. And I've gotten games from all those places because I buy physical copies and there's not a lot of options to do like a mom and pop thing for that. And also, to be frank, I am out there looking to save money like anyone else. So I do Gamers Club Unlocked for most of my purchases. Occasionally I'll do GameStop for if it's a used game or if I'm feeling just kind of lazy or they have a pre-order bonus that I'm interested in because my Gamers Club Unlocked is through my brother, so it's not really mine. And my GameStop, my Best Buy is farther away than my GameStop. So yeah, and then there's also like so that's kind of they always think of like GameStop as the machine, but then if you buy off Amazon, I feel like that's just hypocrisy.
But
like,
also, it's cutthroat on both sides. So,
like,
people like calling a company out for doing what it can to earn your business is because we are smart shoppers. We are trying to get the best deals, so they're trying to do the best they can to offer best prices. So it's kind of like it's hypocrisy in that one way that you'll not shop at this store but shop at this big business and think that that's okay, and it's very, very similar. But also, we also have a role to play in the way that businesses interact with us. So I like the way that your brain works because you started the topic, I guess, about Amazon as I haven't done the research yet. There's more to this. There's obviously layers here, which I don't want to because I think you probably said about 15,000 words since then, that 30 seconds ago. I think that's really important because you're getting into freelance journalism and the way that you explore, the way your brain works is benefit of the doubt first rather than, holy crap, there's this huge problem. And I was wondering if that's something that is that always been there, or you've been developing that in the last couple of years as you're starting to dive into this side of video games? I was curious about, that seems very natural for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that just kind of comes into the basis of valuing critical thought. And I mean that in the sense of like looking at something and trying to look at it from all angles that it exists from. And I think that's important for, being a consumer, for being a human in the world, and certainly for video games. Like when I, approach a game for figuring out, what do I like, what do I not like, where am I seeing value lacking, and also where can people get value from is something I'm always thinking of for video games, especially when I'm like going more against the grain on something, which is GameStop's certainly an example. I have games that I dislike that a lot of people like Night in the Woods is a game I really dislike.
Yeah, I know a lot of people listen to the show who like that game quite a lot.
Yeah, and so I spend a lot of time when I'm writing pieces or doing things on YouTube, even though YouTube is so much more bite-sized than like my 1,000 plus word articles, thinking of like what is the counter argument or counter perspectives that I can address and acknowledge, and then still put forth my opinion. So like, when it comes to a game, like I can see why people do like Night in the Woods. Like I have, I teach and I have students ask me like, oh, I heard this was good. And I'm like, well, if you like this, you might like it because of X, Y, Z. Personally, I felt, ABC about it, the end, and you can kind of form your own opinions based on that. So yeah, I think it's always important. I think if you're not acknowledging the value, or on the flip side, the negative of something, you're, kind of missing the point of like developing your argument. And everything at the end of the day is an argument. When I say I like a game, when I say where I spend my money, just anything I do is some sort of argument for it. So I think you need to look at like all the angles of it. And also acknowledge like, on that note, I do a lot of stuff that's like social related to games. So I'll write like about, what, I had an article not too long ago on Nerd Much that was talking about, Twintel and what she means like from a feminist perspective, and how it's interesting that like she's a very objectified character, but kind of in a powerful, positive way. It seems like a lot of the community was like, oh my God, like she has this amazing butt, like this is so cool, like she's this badass woman of color, and her her ass is amazing, and she has these great pants, and she's kind of swole, and like people really rallied around that. And I saw someone post like, why is it okay for us to say like, oh wow, look at this, her amazing body, but isn't that what we're pushing against? And they were asking that in a very genuine way. And I thought about that, as a gamer, as a feminist, as, a person. And I wrote an article kind of breaking down what my perspective was on that, and kind of the pros and cons of having that perspective on how women are portrayed. And like, what does it mean for, a woman of color to be kind of like, propped up as kind of the quote unquote bad bitch of this game, and how that's very powerful, but also still kind of a stereotype, and how we can enjoy it for both those reasons. Like there's so many things I enjoy that are problematic or have issues attached to it, right? I shop at, big stores. I like plenty of AAA games that aren't, maybe the most socially progressive. Even if something as simple as like the Mario franchise, like that's not a socially progressive game. It's not really doing anything interesting with the story. And, it's very tropey, and I still love it. I still think it's a great game, but I also acknowledge that it's tropey. And I think a lot of people in general, it's not just in the gaming community, but just overall, have a hard time doing that. And I think it's a hard thing to learn. But I like to do it because I think it's more genuine. I think it's more valid. And I also like to think that it helps people not only see my perspective, but maybe try to be more critical of their own perspectives. Because I'm okay with calling myself out on stuff. Like one of my favorite guilty pleasures that I'm looking forward to writing about and like doing some YouTube content maybe on is I weirdly actually really like the cheesy, tropey, like fighting games that have like the, the girls in the scantily clad outfits, and little bunny ears, and it's very like tropey and kind of like, super problematic. But I'm like, I don't know, I just want to customize my fighter and have like this, kind of like, babe bimbo fighter, and just have a good time playing the game, even though I know it's problematic and messed up, and that's not what I want in my female representation. But sometimes
hang on a second, Janet. No, this is not allowed. You are not allowed to have opinions that are like you must have a blanket rule for everything. And I'm so glad that you got to this point, because I wanted to ask you, I want to dive into this a little bit since you brought it up about the notion of the way that female characters are portrayed. And there's so many angles to this. I want to take the first angle of who's allowed to say what. So I feel like there's like this weird thing that happens on the internet. We all do it individually, of saying like, you're not allowed to say that thing. And for some things, I feel like that's very real. There are certain words that certain people absolutely cannot say. But maybe in my mind, that might be the only. I think I don't even have to say anything more for people to know what I'm talking about. But for the instance of for Twintel, in my mind, I think like, what's the difference between like Twintel and that's cool, and quiet is not good in Metal Gear Solid. So like her reason is she breathes through her skin, so she can't wear any clothes. Like, is that good enough? Or is it like maybe she was realistic looking enough? Like a couple of different factors that make that not cool. But for Twintel to be like, yeah, I love the quote bad bitch, where I'm like, that's a great term, first of all. I think that is very empowering, and it's just like, holy crap, nobody's going to mess with her. But I'm also worried that we're moving in this direction where you're not even going to be allowed to say that very soon. So I wanted to kind of just first focus in on the whole, who's allowed to say what? Is Nintendo allowed to get away with a little bit more because they're like family friendly? Like even with the recent Splatoon trailer that we saw with the Octolings, and was that what they were called? Yeah, like looking kind of like a little hippie, like not hippie in like the 60s. Like they got some hips going, they got some curves, and like are they like?
Yeah, like can Nintendo develop sexy
I guess
squids?
so, yeah. And are we like not going to, if we don't give them crap for it, then we give somebody else? Like, I don't know. It's very complex. I think we should all just chill out for the most part. But I'm curious because you ended up going on to sort of like a Dead or Alive or like a Lollipop Chainsaw or whatever that game was. And like, that's cool too. So I'm glad that we're having like a balanced conversation. I agree that there are some things that are a little like, can trigger you a little bit. Maybe they shouldn't send you off the deep end, but you should be able to recognize that's maybe just a little far.
Yeah. Well, I guess the idea of like who has the authority to speak on what. I mean, it relates to, and it's kind of funny because people always, not everyone, but I definitely get pushback on people being like, why can't we just like play the game? And you can play the games. Like if you don't want to have these conversations or think about it, that's totally fine. And I would say I probably don't even judge you for it. I don't think either, just because, I think it's fine. Like, just games are so young too. I think as the medium ages, I might hold people a little bit more to a higher standard in terms of thinking more critically about games. But I think if you just want to play them and have fun, that's fine. That's a lot of what I do also. Like, I think that's the other kind of funny thing about the content I produce. Most of it is pretty much run-of-the-mill type content, like what games am I really playing on Switch right now, just kind of general stuff. But then every now and then I will do more critical, sociology-based stuff, and then people are like, but who can say what? I think it's a bit about your, once again, experiences. So who are you? Where do you come from? How do you identify? And then you can critique anything as any person, I think. So I think, for myself, I can be critical of but it's harder because you don't have the experience. So it requires more research, and it requires you to be more upfront about the fact that you don't know everything and that you did your best and that you're doing what you can from the perspectives that you have. And also, I think trying to uplift other people writing from those perspectives. So let me give some more clear examples so people kind of know what I'm talking about. So for myself, I'm a woman of color, I'm Hispanic, and those would be kind of the main, I guess, like minority identities that I have. But I'm not like personally queer. I'm not in the I don't have any, how would I phrase it? Like I don't have anything else that kind of
no disabilities or nothing else is sort of like.
Yeah, see, and I'm like, and then even as I was about to say that, I'm like, I don't even know if that's the right word.
Isn't that weird?
To think about it, which is why I didn't say disability. Because I don't actually remember. Like I have actually been learning about this because I follow a lot of different people on Twitter, and I try to hear different things from different perspectives, and I do a lot of retweeting of anything that I vibe with or that I think is valuable. So I'm like, is that the right word? So I'm not even sure if it is. But right, so I don't fall into any of those categories, but I can still write about those things and talk about those things. But I think I need to be especially more tactful when I do so because it's not my perspective. Like I don't know if The First Life is Strange is good queer representation. I don't think that I am necessarily pushed to write about something like that personally, just because I'd have to do a lot more research and think about it, and it's not something I'm directly connected to. So it just kind of requires more tact on my end. And if I'm speaking about it, I need to be upfront about how, like, hey, this isn't, I did what I can with the information I got. Now I should still be held accountable if I mess up, for sure. But as a writer and a journalist and a person, I need to also like own the fact that like this isn't, I'm not the most qualified person to be speaking on this subject. And then more importantly, I need to, if I were to take on a piece like that, I would need to do a lot of reading on like what is the queer community saying and talking to people in that community to figure it out, because like who am I to say what is and isn't good queer representation as a straight person? And it is up to me to like educate myself and know that. Like, I don't think we should only write about our own experiences directly or think about our own experiences directly, because that's kind of how we end up in the situations we're even in, right? Like, so much of games journalism is like cis straight white men. Like, and I still like the media and follow the podcast and stuff. Yeah, right. But like, it's like I see so many like, oh, hey, welcome back to this week's show, and it's just like a bunch of white guys, and like today we have a guest, which is another white guy. You know, it's just like, it's very much homogenous, and sometimes we end up missing perspectives or losing stories as a result of that. So, you know, it's our job to kind of educate ourselves on that. So that's kind of where I fall into that. Like, I think men can totally write about, like, you know, female representation and things like that, and women. But I think more importantly, it's important for, you know, people to be reading those stories, reaching out and trying to prop those stories up, right? If you want, you know, if you're running a, you know, a podcast, a media thing or whatever, and you want to like address something of that sort, like get someone from that community to speak on it. And more importantly, get someone on that from those communities to speak about anything. Like, you know, you don't always need to bring in like a queer writer for a queer story, like bring in queer writers for all stories. And then those things will kind of come into play. Like, we need just more perspectives on things. Even like, you know, I think the developer, the development team from like Uncharted, I think kind of spoke on that not too long ago on like, when they were kind of crafting their female characters, like, you know, women on the team saying, well, what about this? Or what if we made this character like this or whatever? And there are things that we don't always think about because we have like, you know, since our society is inherently like an unequal one that has, you know, that has sexism, that has racism, whatever. Some of these things are so ingrained that we don't even think about it. You know, it's like the little stuff like when you always defaulting to like male pronouns and things, or just kind of, you know, or even the fact that I say like,
hey guys, I've been literally thinking that's been on my mind all week. I'm like, I say that all the time.
And like that is kind of problematic of me, but for me, I'm cool with that layer of that. You know what I mean?
It's a fine line from having a problem with like, hey guys and mankind. Like our prime minister, like what everything recently said, like people kind or person, like that's. I think we're kind of like bending over a little backwards there.
Yeah, it just depends on your. I mean, you should still be aware of that, even if you don't vibe with the perspective or end up saying that you're gonna adhere to it. You know, you should still be aware, and you shouldn't be mad that someone points out.
I think that's interesting. I'm glad you brought up Naughty Dog too, like, there for a second too, because The Last of Us is something that I did hear a comment from cis white male who talked about how it was interesting how when you play through The Last of Us, you have no idea that Ellie is gay until you play the DLC, and then you go, oh, there's something else here. And it was an observation by a straight guy who said that's the way to do it. And I thought about it. I'm like, I think that I agree. But to your point, how much of like his experience and background and stuff allows him to say that? Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of accepted that as like, maybe that is the way that the queer community would want to, like, that it's not like this big. And they were brought out during this giant parade, and that's how you knew they were gay. Like, it wasn't a big deal. It was just part of, because you never really see most characters who are straight. You don't see like, by the way, this person is straight, or you don't go out of their way to have a relationship with with the opposite sex to demonstrate that person is straight. And it was the same with. So I think it normalizes it, which is why I appreciated that point. But yeah, I think it's just interesting to hear that from. I guess maybe it's just because that's all I listen to. And that's all that's out there to further your point. In Canada, we're also voting on legalizing marijuana, and they had the whole argument was televised and everybody was watching it, but everybody's live tweeting it. Everybody's like, how are we leaving this decision up to this group of old white men who have very likely have no experience with marijuana? They don't actually know what they're talking about. Like it's based on totally. Biased sort of reports that try to like they're trying to get an argument one way or another. They're pushing an agenda. So I was as you were saying, like getting more perspective from different types of people. I thought of those types of things where you have a group like who's the decision makers, and it doesn't take much to just sway that a little bit. And because I think people making the games, making the decisions, they're smart people, but they can only speak from their own experience. And it's not a knock on. It's just like that you can't do anything but speak to your experience and context.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's so fascinating too is like all these things are so layered, and that's why I think they're important conversations to have, and also interesting conversations to have. Like what good representation looks like for any community is going to vary even within that community. Like what what I want in Latino representation might not be what other
Wait, you're not going to
Mexican
speak for them
people
all?
or Puerto Rican people want.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I might have to. And the thing, that's the crazy part too. That's like that you and you know, I don't let that color too much of what I do, but it's kind of insane how like you know, I might be the only person of color that some of my like followers and fans, like I might be the only like POC voice they have or female voice they have. And you know, I shouldn't change how I do things based on that, but I mean, that is a weight that we carry. And that's just that's how the world is. There's not really anything that can be done about it until like way in the future when like everything's magic again or something.
Yeah, Kevin McDonald was just tweeting about that, about women writers, and who's saying like, you don't always have to write about being a woman. Like you can write about like what everybody else is talking about, like be part of the conversation. But the fact that you're bringing different life experience with you is going to make your voice unique. And I think it's finding out like where overcompensating, it gets a little gross and it gets a little like uninteresting almost, because that becomes too normal. Where if you just become part of the conversation, but you're coming at it from this angle, it's like, oh, I haven't heard this before. How many of us listen to 15 different podcasts all saying the same? Like there's a reason this show is what it is because I didn't want to do something where I'm basically regurgitating like the same opinions about the same like news stories as everybody else. It's hard to really have like a different take because we're all coming from very similar backgrounds. Or just the fact that the news is the same. So
are you saying that you're not also amazed by the first 3 hours?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or the what's your take on the Infinity War trailer? Like, I don't know. Like, I think not to knock that because I'm hyped about all of that stuff. I am totally stoked about, and I'm an Xbox primary, but my PlayStation is my exclusive machine, which is great because there's so many exclusives on that thing where it actually justifies that purchase. But that's a whole other conversation of fanboyism.
Yeah, my PlayStation is my dust collector.
Because of Nintendo.
I know. I don't know. I mean, this is a whole other podcast, and actually something I want to do on YouTube probably at some point. I don't know what.
Did you snag your custom URL by the way? Now that you're 200, did you get Janet Garcia? YouTube.com/ or
Oh yeah, it's
Game Onasis. I love that.
That's Game on YSUS. Which I have that name branded for everything.
There's a cool reason for it too.
But it is hard because it's not an easy thing to say. It's not an easy word to say.
But once you get it
and know how to say
it's locked in. Game Onasis. Tell people what it means because I think it's fascinating, or where that comes from. There's a combination.
Yeah. So Game Onasis, it's like a blend of gaming and Dionysus or Dionysus, depending on how you want to pronounce that. I pronounce it Dionysus. So I like mythology. And, you know, I'm a nerd, so I kind of blended those two together to make a name. And I also wanted to think of a name that was, like, unique, but also felt like representative of myself. And I also love, you know, craft beer and drinking, so I thought it'd be funny to blend those two. Like, I love games and drinking. You know, let's blend it with some Greek mythology or some, you know, mythology and then kind of come up with Game Onasis. And as I've kind of been thinking more about that name, kind of my mission statement is that, you know, it's kind of, I kind of mean it to mean the god of gaming, which isn't to say that I am like the best gamer in the world because I don't.
Jen, I've been podcasting with the guy who calls himself the Nintendo guru for years, so don't worry, I get it. Like,
for sure, but it's not like in terms of, you know, my skill as a gamer, but rather it's this idea that like, you know, becoming a god of something is to like be, you know, all knowing, masterful, and also kind of create a universe. And for me, I want like my gaming understanding experiences and the content I make to be its own universe and to be, you know, positive and deep and just looking at things from a lot of different angles. So that's kind of what the mission statement of the name is. And my thinking is that, yeah, it is kind of hard to say if you just read it, but a lot of people's name is hard to say if you just read it especially in the YouTube and gaming space. So I'm hoping that people will just
I've literally had people ask, why is Sean pronounced Sean? And they're like, well, there's no H in there. Like, what? I'm like, I don't know how to explain this, man. It is what it is. It's tough.
Right. Once I get popular enough, I'm hoping people will just
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of.
We'll see what happens. I don't want to change it. I'm like, it's already
Game Onasis is awesome, and it is. It's one of those like, but it also forces you to kind of look at it longer than a second, and then that's really where you got them. So it's kind of a nice tactic.
Hopefully. Well, Lagunitas is hard to say, the beer company, and no one still knows how to say it. They put the name pronunciation on all the cans, and I still would mess it up for years. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It almost becomes it's kind of like Faye. Like they from Joint Games, they just really.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So they were kind of like, it becomes a game in and of itself. The meta is pronouncing the name. Janet, I think that I need to go reach out not only for, I think first of all, I need to find more teachers to be on this show, because I think teachers are like some of my favorite guests. Luke Lohr is one that comes to mind, one of my all-time favorite guests. And I wanted to ask you, because you're very early in your career in all sense of the word, of being a teacher and doing this. How long have you been teaching? And then, like, what was that path? Why are you a teacher? Not that you shouldn't be. That sounded weird. That tone was a little strange, but I'm curious, like, why?
No, you're good. Yeah, I moved into the ed space, a few years ago. It was the first time I kind of had it in terms of a job. So, I guess the path that I've kind of taken career-wise, I guess I'll just go through that and kind of talk about where gaming fits in. So, when I was like, I guess I'll zoom all the way back, but also try to make it kind of brief. So, as a kid, like, I always loved games, and I, read like EGM magazine, a couple other magazines. And when I was a kid, I was like, wow, I really like video games. I wonder if I could do something with that for a living. And this was like, late 90s, early 2000s, like was kind of my childhood. And I was like, maybe I can make games. Like, it's kind of, I think, one of the first things kids think, like, oh, I can make these games. It'd be cool, right? I like games. I can make the games. Like, no understanding of what that actually means. And then I read this article, and I think it was an EGM, that changed my whole life. And it was about the life of a game developer. And they had like this art drawn, like this cartoon of this guy, of course it was a guy, right? Of this guy all disheveled and in front of his computer, and there's all this stuff stacked, and they put up all these infographics on the amount of hours it takes, and how this guy's miserable and poor, and he doesn't see his family, and he hasn't showered in forever. And I'm like, wow, that's way too much work. I'm not going to do this. And that article totally like changed my perspective on what I would do with my life. I'm like, never mind, I can't do games dev. That's too hard. Of course, when I grew up, I realized everything is actually hard.
If it wasn't for that article, we'd have VR 5 years ago, because not everybody would have quit their path of game development. We would have had more people in. It's kind of like concussions in football right now. Nobody's going to play football, and the NFL is going to fold in 15 years because everybody's worried about that.
For sure.
So that's good. You kind of got warded off, and you were smart enough to like see that and go like, I don't want that.
Yeah. And I did try doing, when I was figuring out what I wanted to do for a career in high school, I kind of was like, well, I don't know, making money would be cool, so maybe I could do something in computer science. That's pretty popular. So I took a comp sci class in high school, but it was like not a good class because it was literally an online only comp sci class, which is like so not a good way to learn computer science from a machine. Like the machine will teach me how to use the machine. So I liked coding a little bit. I did some super
This is
light
in high
stuff,
school?
I forgot what language.
See, this is the difference between you and me. Like, my high school is not like this at all. Like, I mean, the fact that there's a good 10 years between us, so that's one thing. But ComSci that was university courses. Like, that was well after. So the fact that that's being introduced much earlier now, that's the difference between our generations, really.
Yeah, and I did go to a really good high school. I'm from Chicago, for those who don't know. So I'm through CPS, public school, but I went to like a Roman school, and those are like our good high schools, because like there's definitely a lot of CPS stuff that is not of quality or of equal service to students. But I went to actually a really good school. So that's the other thing that I had going for me. So I did some stuff, but once we got to Java, didn't understand what was going on, hated everything, and I was like, never mind, this isn't going to be what I want to major in for sure. But I've always liked writing, and I had this amazing English teacher, so I thought, okay, well, at first I was going to go into journalism, but that kind of didn't really pan out because the school I decided to go to doesn't have a journalism-focused program. So I figured my kind of theory going into freshman year was, okay, I'm going to study like English and education and, go into being an English teacher, but I can also like still be, I can use the English degree for writing as well. So
is English your first language, by the way? I hope that's okay to ask. Like, what languages are you, like, do you speak? Are you bilingual, multilingual? Like, what was home? Just English?
Just English. Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit of Spanish just from picking it up, and my dad actually, he's Mexican. He immigrated here in the 80s. But my parents chose not to teach me Spanish growing up because they were worried it would mess up my English, which is not true.
Yeah.
But it is something that a lot of parents, unfortunately, do get told by either, the media or by actual teachers or instructors who, like, look, who maybe don't fully, understanding the nuances of language and reading is so complicated, and, like, shout out to anyone doing elementary ed, because I could never
teaching somebody to read for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know I can't teach you to read. I can barely even, sometimes I feel like I can't even teach what I'm teaching now because it's so complicated to me, like English and writing.
I'm sorry to jump back a little bit. Did your dad immigrate did you go from Mexico all the way to Chicago, or what was his journey? Holy crap.
Yeah. So, he's from a big family. So, his siblings like immigrated here first, and then he kind of got like the setup to come into the United States. And then his first year here, they put him up. They like kept it, you know, he had the apartment. So the only thing they had him do, like he didn't even have to work his first year. They're like, just learn English. Spend the first year learning English. Do you know? That's what he did. So his English is amazing. He was
Can you
in his
imagine?
early 20s. No, and it was, I don't know.
Right? Like many of us, I do this all the time about like the things.
I'm so spoiled. Like I'm in America. Like I can't even get my YouTube videos up. Like come on. Like I gotta
it's
get
like let's cross this border.
Like, this is not even
Holy
that hard.
crap! The things that our parents did to like allow us to like do this is it blows my mind. I am grateful. All that you have to be every once in a while. You just gotta go like, thank goodness for this because or for them for doing that.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just as we live longer and as we are allowed to do these things, there's time to pay back.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of already part of a thing now because I actually I live with my family actually, so we're all kind of in this together as a team. Anyway, so I kept going through that, jumping back in. So I did ed, and I was really really passionate about ed, and it was the main thing I cared about completely. I did play video games in college, but it wasn't really like I wasn't all thinking of going into games content creation as a career. And I just kept doing my ed stuff. I actually, I had a blog in college called collegeinthecornfield.wordpress.com that's still up, and I would document like writing about ed, and like I was really, really passionate about education. Not that I'm totally not now, but like that was my thing. That was what I did. And then during my student teaching, which was not too long ago, a few years ago, I just for some reason I can't even remember why I decided to do this, but I was kind of just looking on the internet at for those people that are going into the industry, you guys all know games journalism, jobs.com or whatever that website is. So I just like jumped on there for some reason. I can't remember what compelled me to do this, but I had written a blog related to video games and what they taught me just on my personal blog. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of like writing about games. And I got set up with a job with Game Mob, which I think the website still exists, but I'm not sure if they're active because I haven't seen them post anything in a while. But that was like the first games journalism job I had, and I really just did it for the hell of it. I'm like, this it seems like it'd be cool to do this. Like let me do this for fun. And it didn't really pay. It was basically volunteered, but the like lead editor, John, I think his last name is Kim. He did give me a little bit of money, like like one or two times, just like for the culture of it. Like, oh, here's $20-$30 in PayPal. Just like shout out to you for writing for us for free. Right. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then and that was like one of the biggest moments. And there's what I love so much about this career that I'm like moving into is that there's so many amazing little moments that feel like the biggest deal in the world, even though it isn't like anything compared to like the big leagues. But like the first time I got a code, and I'm like, I download this game for free. I mean, I was like a $2 game, right? Who cares? But like, or the first time I got a game before it was released was the Tomb Raider iOS game.
Was it Lara Croft Go?
That was the first time I played a game before. Yeah, Lara Croft Go. And I got that before it was out in the world, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
It is the coolest thing in the world.
I'm like, I'm playing this game, and no one else is playing it, and like it was so. And it was crazy. It's still crazy for me to experience this because once again, I don't think I'm like the greatest gamer in the world, and when you are stuck, there's no guide, 'cause nothing's out yet, and you're screwed, and it's crazy. So I did that. That was one of the last pieces I wrote for them. Because then I moved into writing for Bit Cultures, which it was also like generally unpaid, but they do give bonuses. So like you'd have like Employee of the Month stipend, like just and it paid a good amount more than Game Mob did, which was basically nothing, So it was a little bit higher than nothing. So I started writing for them. Moved out of Game Mob just for sake of time, and then somewhere in that midst, I got a YouTube channel with my friend Jess called Bit by Bit, and I'm just like, oh, it'd be fun to. I want
Bit by Bit. You guys got Bit by Bit.
Build up my resume.
That's awesome. That's a great name.
Yeah, youtube.com/bit-by-bit. It still exists, and it's awesome. Check out the backlog. We did amazing content that almost no one watched, but it was like some of the best work.
Isn't that soul crushing? You're like, man, we should have just made like a top, like the top 7 things you didn't know about X, and like that would have got 100,000 views. But we put in like this really thoughtful and well crafted video, and nobody that sucked.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of reasons that I think that channel wasn't super like popular because it did run for about a year, but and I did it as practice for like getting more YouTube stuff up. So during this point in my career, I'm still moving into teaching, but part of me is like, maybe I could do game stuff eventually. Maybe I could actually make that my career, but it was very much on the back burner for me still, going into senior year of college. anyway, so I was working on this project, and kind of why I think that channel wasn't super popular, I think, is because a lot of reasons. One, it was more of like a podcast that was also a YouTube channel. So, and those are never as popular on YouTube because they're longer. Like even the big names, right? If we think of like, IGN, NBC, like they don't have nearly as many subscribers as you think they would have, just because it's a podcast. Like it's just not as popular for YouTube content. And then it was me and my friend Jess, and we're both women, which is kind of one thing I wanted to do. I'm like, there's so many, just men doing video game podcasts. Like, what if we were just women, like 2 women, like not one guy and one girl, just 2 women, like, fuck it. And I think that's another reason that we maybe weren't as popular, not because people are like inherently sexist, but I think that, well, I mean, a little bit, right? Like, I think one thing that kind of, when you see 2 women and it's a podcast, you might kind of think that it's just kind of more of a, more like for women. And like, I think, that might kind of be one reason it wasn't quite as popular. The one thing I was really proud of is the demographic of our viewership was about 50-50 men and women, which was super cool and really rare. Like on my current YouTube channel, it's mainly all men viewing me. Like I don't have a lot of women, and that's something that I'm thinking about moving forward. Like how can I get more women to view my content? Because for me, that's like always where the responsibility lies. Like if women aren't reading or viewing your stuff, there's something about you that isn't drawing women in, or you're failing to market towards women well. Like, because we all know women like games and view game content, so like, why aren't they viewing your content?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to what we were kind of talking about before, which is like, how natural are you coming across? Like, are you doing it to be that woman voice, and then like you're holding up a torch for everybody, or are you just kind of like, I'm a woman who games, or who likes talking about games, and like we said, with all this experience, you bring a different angle to it. I know a lot of like my wife has been streaming a little bit of Fallout just in the other room, and I know a lot of people have been coming up to me saying like, you need to get Chelsea to do that a little bit more, because my wife likes it. And like, it's a way to like, we've all been like, the question comes up all the time for guys who are, because it's only, the guys who are on the podcast answer these questions. The question always comes up, how do I get my girlfriend or wife more into games and stuff? And people always talk about, well, you could get them started with like these kind of games. And I've always hated those answers. I've always been like,
I just did a video on this actually on my channel. Yeah, it's called How to Turn Your Girlfriend GF/BF into a Gamer, and the video is and then I just talk for a few minutes.
Okay, that's it. Okay, I don't mind that answer either. I've always thought that the responses were inherently sexist. Like, we'll start them off with baby mode games. Like, that's not really it either. I think it's a different, like, how do you sort of like, it's like, take it out of games for a second too. What if you were into movies, or if you're into sports? How do you enjoy this passion of yours with the person that you're spending a lot of time with?
Yeah.
It's not like sit down.
Which I also address. Which is also just leave them alone. Like my answer is to leave them alone. Like my abridged thing is to, well, 2 things: leave them alone.
Dump them.
Just leave them alone. Like.
I'm kidding.
Don't like bother them about it. Like we all have, and it's funny because I went way back into the archives to episode 34 of your show to listen to Antonio talk, and I loved his response of talking about his wife. Also, his story, I know. So cute. I love Antonio. But he was talking about how
episode 34. Did you say games. That's 100 episodes ago?
Yeah. It's literally the only it's the farthest back you can even go onto the iTunes.
Oh no! Wait, we will need to fix that. There's more. Yeah, we will need to fix that.
Yeah. I think that's.
I think we moved some stuff at some point, so
I did catch it. I want to say it is 34, maybe it is a little earlier, but it's definitely not like 100 or anything. It's very low. And he mentioned that he would talk to his wife a bunch about games and it's kind of when he started to realize that he wanted to do games media. And then he mentions in the podcast that like, I realized I need to find communities that were also into games, because if I kept talking to my girlfriend about this, girlfriend at the time, she's just gonna leave me. And I thought that was so funny and cute, but also kind of true. Like, I mean, he acknowledged that, look, she loves me and cares about me, and she will listen to an extent, but like this isn't what she's like about. So like I should just not like don't try to make people into what they aren't. And in the video that I have on my channel, I mentioned like, if you're really passionate about your significant other getting into games because you love games, instead of like kind of try to pay it forward instead of trying to get them into video games, like one, that will happen naturally. They'll see you playing, maybe they'll want to jump into Mario Kart, whatever, if they on a casual level, just to have like, because it is fun playing games with people, so I can understand that. But if you really want that in a partner, like someone to be into what you're into, find something that they're into that you don't care about, and try to show an interest and try to be genuine about it. And if you don't want to do that, that's also okay. But like, you can't expect like, hey, man, why won't my boyfriend help me with this Breath of the Wild puzzle? It's like, but I'm also not, interested in, going to, I don't know whatever blanket interest he might have, doing, watching rugby
Yep.
or cooking at home or something like that, right? Whatever his interest might be. Which is fine. We don't all need to have the same interest with our partners either, but like I think if that is something you're passionate about, like if you want them to take an interest, like when's the last time you took an interest into, you can't be asking for someone to play, Katamari with you if you're not watching like
K-dramas.
If you don't want to do that, then don't do that. But like, right, exactly. So think of something that you really are into that they might be obsessed with, and like, hey, you're not passionate, and they're not forcing that on you, right? I don't go around, wanting people to be into like pedagogy and like talk about education. Like,
I don't know about you, but I'm starting to trip over like strategically placed crocheting and knitting instruction manuals around here, and that's not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Sticks, right? And like,
that's a great opinion and take on it too, because it sort of relates to like in sales, and like I've worked retail as well, and perhaps you can identify with this as well, where I was a horrible salesperson. I couldn't sell a TV to save my life until I bought one, and then I'm like, oh, this is what you care about. Like when I'm purchasing something, these are the things that I want to hear, and this is like the education. This is the process. So it flips it with this, where you're trying to sell something, but if you haven't bought something in that way, you don't know what interaction is actually best. So I think that's a really good sort of lesson to learn and a good path to. It also strong.
Be a fan to get fans. We were DMing about this actually with like bringing it back to like creating content and like games journalism and stuff like. And then I'll kind of, I guess, swing back to.
You never have to feel like you have to like loop back. Like, trust me, if you continue to go through, like we just go off into space. Okay, well, don't feel any obligation to me because I don't care, and I don't think any less of you for it. So.
Yeah, no, sure thing. I appreciate that. But like, with we were DMing on Twitter about like how I said, you need to be a fan to, or maybe this wasn't with you, maybe with someone else, but you need to be a fan to get fans, and like, I'm always asked what that means, and it's kind of a philosophy I adapted from Gary Vee, the entrepreneur, etc. And it's like, you can't, and you shouldn't expect anything from people either. So I'm not saying that you should kind of be fake about it, but like, I can't expect people to watch me on YouTube and read my articles if I'm not reading other people's articles, if I'm not if I'm not responding to comments, if I'm not looking for, when I did my Brawler 64 video, which is like a Kickstarter controller, it's an N64 controller, but not hideous. It's like, it's a modern update and it's awesome. So check out, it's from, is it Retro Fighters, I think is the company. But yeah, you can look up Brawler 64 controller. They have pre-orders already up, and it's actually really affordable. It's like $20-$30 or something. It's awesome. And they are coming out with new colorways for it too. So anyway, but when I like did that video, I'm like, what are other like N64 people saying on Twitter, and how I can kind of like loop them back into like like how can I get them interested in it, and like being more of a fan. So I'm trying to like work on, and I don't have a lot of time, so it is hard, but like that's the first thing to get cut, right? You just want to, everyone wants to post, and myself included, like I want to just drop my YouTube video and get all these views and have all this interaction. But if I'm never seeing what you're doing on your podcast, or what Trey's doing on Nintendo Domain, or if I'm not talking to Antonio with Switch Talk, like why is anyone going to care to like know me, or how is anyone even going to know me if I'm just shouting into the void? Like, you need to join the conversation. You can't just put your stuff out there. And that applies to kind of everything in life. Like, you need to, and as you build that community, it feels better. It feels more meaningful. Like, me having my Patreon, and I have like, I think 13 people or so on there. It's so cool. Like, it's like a little group of people that are like down for what I'm doing. Right. They're even putting up money for it. I'm sure you guys feel that way with like, the Make Us Better kind of group and everything like that. Like, it's cool, and you like develop it, and it ends up, and it all benefits you. You have more contact with people, you learn more about stuff, you get more perspectives, you get more money, you get more views, you build your career faster. Like, it's check. There's nothing but benefits. It's so necessary. Totally. Like, that's the whole point. Like, that's why we should be doing what we're doing, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, we write and produce audio and produce videos so that people view it and consume it and engage with it. So like, it doesn't make any sense for you not to also be engaging with other people's stuff.
You're making like, way too much sense right now. This is all making, like, this is way too logical. Janet, you are wise beyond your years, like way, way, way beyond your years. I am so impressed with your grit and your intelligence and your quickness. You are so quick. I think that we just packed 3 podcasts into this 1 hour here together. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that we didn't like close the loop on that you wanted to before we close out the show here?
I think the last thing is I'll just wrap up, I guess, how I got to where I am and then what I'm doing now, and then
Yeah, no,
I
awesome.
feel like I'm good.
Seriously, I am.
So much fun.
I'm not even just saying this because you're on the show. Like, I am completely fascinated by you. Like, I am. It's very rare where I'm like, I could just like sit back and just kind of like. I feel like it would be lazy of me to do that. Like, it's not. But I could. Like, I could just like ask you 3 questions. Go like, could you take an hour and explain these 3 points and be like, okay, go. So this is awesome.
Yeah, well, I do love.
No,
it's
I am.
YouTube,
yeah,
so.
I'm blown away.
But yeah, just to kind of wrap things up. So I was, very much in the ed space. I did my podcast / YouTube channel bit, which still, like, even though I'm not on that anymore and that's now a dead project, like, check it out because we did some really, really cool stuff and I loved doing that collaboration. It was so much fun. I learned so much on that show. Yeah, so then I started, going into my actual like career. I taught at a charter school for like only about a quarter of the year because I actually got let go because of under enrollment, which was crazy. And then I kind of spent a year just kind of floating around. Like literally, I was like in retail. I worked like at a bar. I like kept writing. And during that time, I actually ended up getting a job with NerdMuch, which is where I currently write right now. So you can check me out on that website, nerdmuch.com. All my info's on a pinned tweet, so I'm gonna mention my Twitter at the end as well, and you guys can take a look at that. And that was such a big deal because that's actually a place that pays me per article, which is the first time that I am like, because I kind of was, as I'm moving into building my career, I'm like, you know what, I finally decided, and having talked to I reached out to some industry people for their advice on how to actually do your career, and I'm like, is it better to write for free or just write for yourself? And there's like a mixed camp in that. Kind of the TLDR of it is, if you're writing for free, like you can do that if you want, and maybe it helps you and maybe you get some stuff out of it. Like for me, writing for like Big Cultures, for instance, was so fun because it was so collaborative. Like, and I did like top 10 articles with people. I was like in charge of like teams sometimes. So I felt like that actually gave me a really good breadth of information on like how to be a writer and what game journalism is, even though I really didn't make a lot of money off of that. But the experience I think actually was worth it, and it's something that I don't think I would have gotten if I just did my own blog. But overall, one person said it best when they said, if they can't afford to pay you, the exposure they're giving you isn't big enough anyway for it to be worth it. Which I think is pretty much true. Like, once again, I don't think it's bad to start off. That's how I started off writing for free, and I wouldn't go back and change that personally. I think what I did was good. I'm happy with the places I wrote for and the experience I got. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I did the free thing for a while. I'm at NerdMuch and I get paid. And now at this point, I pretty much only do stuff that's paid, minus like stuff like this where it's like, doing a podcast it's nice, it's fun, and it's not hard work for me. I just show up for an hour, I talk, and then you put it together, which is, if you've ever made a podcast or done YouTube, you know that like the hardest part.
This is literally the best part. And even that, like the first time you do it, it's like, oh snap! Like I usually listen to a podcast in chunks. Like I don't even listen to it an hour of the way through. This is an hour of my day. Like holy crap! I gotta figure that out too.
Yeah. Exactly. So that stuff I don't mind doing for free at all because I have the time and I get benefit from it. You kind of just have to think of like, what are you getting out of it, and does it make sense for what you want to be doing? So now I'm at the point where I'm just kind of doing paid stuff. So I wrote for NerdMuch. Actually recently got my first like freelance gig doing an article for Kotaku. I wrote about FIFA.
Congratulations.
Awesome
holy crap, man.
like,
that's huge.
Yeah, thanks. So that was really exciting. It was another big moment in my career. So I love all these little big moments that happen, even though they're, in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to be like my legacy isn't that one article on whatever place, because I'm going to keep building. But like little stuff is like so exciting. Like, getting the NerdMuch thing. I recently got it's not really a promotion because it's just another thing I get to do, but my main editor Bobby said I can do video content for them, which I've only done one video for them because I've been really busy,
amazing.
but I'm gonna get back on
This
it.
is way too late. I needed to meet you like 5 months ago so I could actually bring you into the Make Us Better crew, because like you're off. I'm amazed.
I mean, well, we can talk because I like doing stuff with groups. And then kind of wrap up with the ed stuff. So in the meantime, right, I was floating, I was doing different jobs, and I had a year where I like didn't really have what I would consider like a set job. So finally I landed and this is like the last year for my educator license to be good in Illinois without having to renew it and do a bunch of stuff. So I'm like, well, I've never gotten a full year of teaching and I want to do that. So that's what I'm doing this year. So this year was just kind of me trying it out and seeing what's up and kind of decide, and then doing my, video game stuff on the side, which has been so hard to do with it being like, early, like one of my first teaching experiences for like a full-time thing. So that's been crazy. And this kind of, but it gave me a year to like be settled, have a routine. and kind of really think about what do I want to do moving forward. And basically what I've decided is that I am actually going to move to just kind of doing more of the video game content stuff. Like I do love ed. I love working with young people is amazing. I teach high school English, and like I love writing, and I love like reading student work. Like I've always loved reading student work, like even when it's bad. Like I love workshopping stuff. I like helping make it good. Like I like, I just like working with people, and like creating things is so beautiful to me, and like learning how to be a critical thinker and consume reading and write, like, it's like that stuff's so important to me, and I love that, and I'm glad that I can work somewhere where I feel like I'm making an impact and doing something. Like I always want to be creating and doing something positive for the world, and I feel like teaching is very much that. But then when I now that I'm thinking about realistically, because my dream was kind of like I'll be a teacher by day, and then I'm gonna somehow build enough stuff to like just transition into like Polygon, IGN, Kotaku full time, and then I realized that's not.
Yeah, it's
some
tough.
people have done stuff
no,
like that.
that's tough.
I'm not saying it's impossible. But for me, I know myself, and it doesn't make sense to like I realized this year that my biggest passion, like even more than ed, is the video game content stuff. So I'm like, well, it makes more sense to like let me put all my time into what my number one passion is, even if that means letting something else go. So I am gonna start to make kind of a shift, probably this summer, honestly, into just doing video game content. I have a potential gig with the website.
Don't jinx
I'm not gonna mention it yet. It's not like a huge. It's not like it's not like IGN.
Just GameStop
right?
or
crazy,
GameSpot.
But, it's just GameSpot, right? No, I do. I have possibly a chance on moving into something. Kind of through
Good
the Nerd Bunch channel. Potentially, that hasn't really been solidified yet. I hope that goes through because that would be super cool and a big step. Just income-wise, because my goal is to get all my income from video game content, which is very, very hard to do. And freelance checks take a while to clear, so like you have to really build up. Like it can be hard. Like I know I follow a bunch of freelance writers the freelance writing game journalism life is complete hell. Like it is so crazy. Like it's like so much. It's like pitching all the time and needing stuff to get accepted. But I mean, I'm planning on working on that while having my Patreon and my YouTube. I'm gonna build up Twitch starting in the summer, and then I just want to keep basically my goal is to get something that's solid, just to have a good chunk of income, and then do freelance stuff on the side. And then I might have to supplement that with like a part-time job doing something, because I have to kind of run my numbers and see what I can afford to do. But my goal is to put as much time as I can into doing the game stuff, because if I want to, I'd rather take like a financial L for like a year or two and like maybe be kind of struggling a bit more. But if that means that like if I have a month that's short, but that means I can gain like 3 people on Patreon, then that's going to be like long-term worth it. So I'm really trying to like shift towards that. I'll be talking with my brother about what does that plan look like. But the overall thing is I'm going to, be doing games content as close to full-time as possible until I can go full-time.
Well, I feel like even if you did like half-time, it's still even at twice as much as what most people would do for full-time.
That'd be huge.
Just because your brain operates that quickly.
Like exactly, and I've been grinding so hard with like having to do teaching and do this stuff on the side and like so I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take my goal is to take all that energy, like those 60-80 hours
a day, somehow.
Probably 60 hours.
You're a weird time traveler.
Then putting in a week with teaching and doing all that stuff and moving that into like the game space. And I'm open to doing other ed stuff too. Like one of my dreams is that I haven't really said in a public space before, but I would love to create like a space for like young people in Chicago to play video games, because that space doesn't really exist. Like there are barcades, but my kids can't go there because they're not 21. I would love to do something with Media or the Art Institute and have pop-up things or collab with someone and create like just spaces for more kids to game, especially because gaming is so expensive. And I knew for me as a kid, like I didn't have, I was lucky enough to actually have the modern consoles. Like a lot of my kids like might not have that, or their parents either don't see the value in it or just honestly can't afford it. It's an expensive hobby. Like to be playing, a game is $60. Like that's a lot, So I'd love to do stuff like that too. Like I just want to do a bunch of game stuff.
You are nuts, man. You are absolutely. This is insane. I need to, because we have because we hit a threshold on our Patreon. We have people coming back. So I think we might need to jump you up the queue, because unfortunately, I'll tell you off air, but unfortunately I do have to cut the episode here. I don't normally have such a hard out, but I do have an unfortunate appointment that I have to get to today.
No, this is
okay,
good.
Great. Yeah, we could just like keep going. Like, there's not really a natural way to do this. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, that's that topic. No, that's not going to happen today. So why don't you go ahead and tell people your pinned tweet where they can get in touch with you? Because obviously you're going to have a crap ton of content coming people's way. They absolutely need to follow you on all of the things.
Yeah. So overall, you can find everything I do just really easily linked on my Twitter. My handle is GameOnysus, so it's GameOnysus. And there'll be a pin tweet with all my info on there. But just to do a super fast rundown of what I'm doing, I currently write for NerdMuch. That's where you can read most of my articles. That's nerdmuch.com. /author /Jangark, which sounds super gross, but that's the handle. Other than that, like literally everything is through the handle GameOnysus. So that's my YouTube, that's my Patreon, that's my Twitch, which only has one stream up right now, but it is a good one. It is the Stanley Parable, and it was my first time playing it, so it was wild. Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I also have a website, which is GameOnysus.com. I'm gonna revamp that this spring break, make it prettier, just make it more. I'm kind of figuring out what is the identity for that, like. How do I want to use that website? So that'll get revamped in the next week or so. And yeah, you can follow me on all that stuff. I do videos twice a month right now. I'm going to up that to 4 times a month once I reach $100 a month on Patreon. I'm currently, I think, $22 away from that goal. So let's see if we can do that. I really want to do way more content. So hopefully sooner rather than later. Every now and then I do bonus video drops too. But yeah, check out Patreon for sure, patreon.com/GameOnysus, because I have a lot of awesome rewards at a lot of different tiers. So I have a $1, a $2, a $3, a $5, and a $10. And, you can get exclusive video access as low as $2. Like I do a monthly exclusive video for $2, which is like super cheap. So yeah, check that out. But other than that, just follow me. And, if you have any questions, at me. And yeah, we'll be, hanging out, making content.
Janet, really this has been an experience for me. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been amazing.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for having me. I hope to be back. And I'm looking forward to you following along the podcast, because I didn't know about this till you reached out to me. And it's actually like such a cool podcast.
Yeah, but
I love the format. And it like leaves me feeling like these really good vibes. It's one of those shows where
there's some real downers.
Yeah, let me go
there's
make
some real
something.
downers.
So
yeah,
down,
be ready for those too. So thank you so much, Janet. In all the whole talking about Faisal at the start, I totally forgot to mention that I'm also on. You guys definitely. This is not optional. This sounds like an also. This is a definite. Tomorrow, Tuesday, Planet Nintendo podcast with Patrick NintenTalk. That's his last name, everybody. And Joe After Work. Myself and Joseph. I was gonna say Joe After Work again. Joseph Brand, Mr. Babbitt himself. We joined forces on Planet Nintendo podcast. This is continuing the Bobby effect, the Bobby aftermath of everybody who Bobby touched and loved in his lifetime here on podcast Earth. This is not the right episode to be joking about that, but go check out that for some dark humor about Bobby's absence. It is absolutely incredible. We also get into an amazing topic at the end, actually, talking about how much work is too much work, how much is the right amount, how do you know that you're doing things right when you're doing all this creative stuff. I think it actually is a nice sort of peir with this conversation where Janet is just going like 1,000,000,000 miles an hour. Absolutely incredible. I hope you guys feel inspired, and just it gave me definitely a new light on how to go about things. She knows this, and she's a decade younger than I am. So kudos to Janet, and you guys should definitely follow her and let her know that she was amazing. She's at GameOnysus. It's in the notes. That's probably the best way to describe that. The music, I decided to go with a little Donkey Kong Country 2 Squitter's Dream over from OC Remix. So thank you guys for the music. And you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. Follow the website We the Nerdy, because I will have a Sea of Thieves review up soon. I will also be playing Far Cry 5, so thank you to our friends at Microsoft for the Sea of Thieves codes, and the friends at Ubisoft Canada for the Far Cry 5. Go on this channel, youtube.com/WeTheNerdy. I've got a 2-hour sort of Let's Play, a live stream. There's a link there too that you can click to go directly to the gameplay, because I was actually still loading. We were chatting and stuff while I was streaming. So, and the trim feature on YouTube, just trash, just straight up trash. I don't know if you guys have used it or whatever. I've tried to trim it out. It's not working. I just put up the link there so you can go straight to about 9 minutes and 50 some odd seconds. It's there. Check it out. Give it a like, leave a comment, share all the great stuff. I am on If We Were in Nintendo tonight with a crew from PlayStation Video Games. Play some video games. Play a Nintendo. Ain't no G in Play Nintendo. Mr. Donnie Reese himself and Caro from the Nintendo Shack. That is tonight live. 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, if you're listening to this on the Monday. If not, then it'll be on Wednesday on YouTube and iTunes and everywhere else. Please, if you guys, now we have such an amazing crew, please consider supporting the show and all the amazing content at Make Us Better, patreon.com/makeusbetter. Thank you to our artists, Gary Gray and Adam Leonard, and our Antonio Guillen. He's the reason why Janet was on this show, our video designer, Antonio Guillen. Check out dayspace.com for amazing podcasts. And of course, this is episode 137 of We the GamerCast. It's now in your ears and your eyeballs. Thank you again for listening. I'll be back next week. I hope you're there too. Now it's time for Jason. Speaking of Jason and Jason Lacey, Flex the Pose Part 2, Patreon episode coming this week. Jason!
Jason!
Jason! Jason! Jason!
Sean! 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 Sean, where are you?
Jason! Jason! Jason!
Sean! 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 Sean!
Jason! 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 Jason!